But yeah. So I'm gonna do my intro to the show and then you can pick up. Welcome back to Respectfully Inspired. The goal of this show is to inspire people to invest in soul wealth. So not the classic wealth, which is building up your money, possessions, and achievements, but soul wealth, which is investing in your relationships and creating memories. Today, I'm here with Sam Nejad. He is an actor. He's a businessman. He did crypto. He does cars. He does e-commerce. He's killed it at such a young age.
Yeah. What's going on, guys? Sam Nejad. Yeah, I'm kidding.
Did I get all the things you do correct?
To an extent. I'm a serial entrepreneur. I like to say I'm an artist in general.
Yeah.
And by an artist, I mean like a creator. So whether it's like product design with like an e-commerce product or doing something as far as just designing a product in like the e-commerce space, or whether it's doing commerce and delivering value to a consumer, it just depends on what avenue I'm in there. But at the end of the day, for me, I've always just been about creating, ideating, and fleshing it out.
I actually have a question because this podcast is focused on soul wealth. So a lot of the things when I'll interview like musicians or I'll interview people who've made a lot of money, and I'll always question them and it's interesting because you made a lot of money at a young age.
Sure. Yeah.
How did making money at a young age, how did it affect your happiness?
So I come from that's an interesting angle, and I appreciate that angle. For me, this past few years, I've really focused on more of my personal self-growth, right? In the beginning, when I was 17, I didn't really I wasn't going the path I really wanted to go into. Yeah. Let's put it that way. I was lost. All I cared about was a gym and fitness, and I was going down a really toxic route where I kind of had a self-realization, like an epiphany. I was like, I'm like a loser at the end of the day is what I thought in my mentality, which is terrible to think about when you're 17. Yeah. It was kind of toxic. It was very toxic, actually. And I was very hard on myself. And I essentially, right at that moment, I'm recently just back on social media. Yeah. I deactivated for 7 years because I was like, you know what?
7 years?
Yeah, dude, it's been a minute.
Wow, that's crazy.
And I'm a social media guy. I'm an entertainer at heart. And for me, I'm always a jokester, but I wanted a specific lifestyle for myself. And essentially, I deactivated to focus on myself. Yeah. And then from focusing on myself, I was trying to hustle and make money. Yeah. Because I was like I wanted a specific lifestyle, And essentially that's where I ended up opening my first business. It was a smog station in Oceanside, and basically for me, I was just headhunting there, and I was focusing on just business, but I was never focusing on Sam, right? Yeah. And then up until recently, because I became a lot more autonomous, and just finishing up a ton of I would say projects, like whether I just graduated from school, where now I'm like, you know what, what's the next step? As far as making money at a young age and affecting your happiness, it was something that, like, when I was going through at 19, 20, and 21, I think this was when I was making, I had the most cash in my bank at 20, 21, right? Because I wasn't using that capital for anything. But was I the happiest? No, I want to say I was severely depressed. I feel like men's mentality or like health is a very like targeted area. I would say like people don't step up, and my mentality was like, bro, like just stop being a pussy. Yeah. That's the simplest way. Yeah. And then up until like I would say the past year and a half, I started focusing on enjoying life, and it was actually one of the moments where I realized this was in Cabo, where this was like an event we were doing. I was launching a product for a crypto protocol called Zcomb. Yeah. It's Comb protocol, and this was like a huge initiative, and I was the backbone of this campaign. Yeah. And it was spring break happening, and everybody's like, yo, we got to go to, you got to come to Cabo. It's like, it's an event thing, right? Especially as in a fraternity. So all the fraternities, like, you got to go. And I was launching this product, and I was like, I declined it, but last minute I was like, you know what? Let's send it. I haven't really vacationed or traveled that much up until then. And then essentially I sent it, and I was doing all the aspects. And then when I was still there in like the hotel room, I was working. And then even though I was on vacation, I was like, yo, I'm on a vacation, but I was still in work mentality. Yeah. And it was up until when my roommate was like, dude, vacation is a mindset. It's not a destination. Yeah. And that's what really triggered with me from then. I was like, you're right. I was saying I was going on this vacation, but the entire time on that vacation, I was working. Yeah. Instead of actually enjoying these moments, creating memories with friends, I was doing an initiative that I could have done at my home or whatever. And then for me, that was kind of like this click in the switch where I was like, you know what? If I'm traveling, because my brother was getting married a month later, and in India, and I was like, I can't be doing any work or any of that stuff. I got to enjoy these final moments, because when I was 18, 19, 20, 21, I didn't really have any memories, right? As far all I remember is just kind of building my commerce empire, and then now it's kind of showcasing building these relationships and kind of trying to get it to the next step. I know it's like elongated answer towards it, but
it's interesting that you say that. I have a similar story. I was in a frat at San Diego State, and I remember like all the kids were drinking and partying, and I did that for a little bit, and then I kind of was like, hey, I don't like this lifestyle.
Sure.
Like, I don't want to drink anymore. I'm like businessman, entrepreneur man. And I started like, stopped going to parties, stopped drinking. I started working, and I kind of like, I don't know if it was like an ego thing, but I saw myself as like, oh, these kids are all wasting their life, and I'm like building my life.
Yeah.
And I would work, and I watch all the self-help books, self-help podcasts, and I would do all these things. And then I realized that I thought I was like, and to a degree, I thought I was better than those kids because I didn't have the bad habits of drinking and partying and doing things. But I realized that I just replaced idolizing partying with idolizing work.
Yeah.
And so that each of those things, those kids that were doing drinking and partying, and maybe they don't have the same values as me, but they were actually investing in the relationships better than I was.
100%.
Because I was just alone. I was at my house with my family, but I didn't want to hang out with my family. I wanted to be in my room doing work.
Yeah.
And then I was just like, and this is the point of this podcast is there's so many, it's for ambitious people. It's for people like me and you who get so caught up in like the next goal. It's never
good enough.
It never fills that hole. And I'm here to tell people, dude, the quality, your life quality is your relationships and your memories. And it's funny because recently my last two podcasts were with kids who live out of their car, and they say they're the happiest they've ever been.
Yeah.
And it's really interesting. And I think you'll have a super cool perspective because you grew up as like a major grinder.
Yeah. So like I came from a traditional house where education was everything. Yeah. Right. I was actually a gamer growing up. Yeah. I was a semi-pro gamer. I was in the most competitive guild in World of Warcraft when I was 14. I know. I even LARPed when I was 14. Right. Yeah. Like I was hugely diverse, but it was like an addictive personality where I was like doing these things. Right. I was addicted to playing WoW from 5th grade up until 9th grade, and then I started being like, you know what, I need to, because this was when Twitch was Justin TV. Yeah. So it was before the transition, and there was no like streamer and all that stuff, and I'd rather support, right, as far as content creation goes from that aspect, because my parents hated it, right? My dad calls it World of War crap. Yeah, World of War. But I had a lot of childhood memories, and my humor and my like a lot of my personality comes from playing that game. Like I've had so many good memories with like friends growing up. But besides that, then I got addicted to anime my sophomore year in tennis. So I started playing that, and then my junior year was kind of like one of my it was like the toughest year, I would say. Because it was really when like school wasn't going that well with me, and I wasn't kind of going into any schools. Like it was kind of a realization, like a reality check. And then I got addicted to lifting. So my end of junior year to my senior year of high school, I was super addicted to lifting. Where Monday, Tuesday, I didn't even know where the days. I would just know it's chest day Monday, back day Tuesday. And then, but it was through lifting, in my opinion, that it kind of fueled my ambition and gave me discipline. So what you're talking about is kind of like focusing so hard on being disciplined, but you focusing on discipline is actually blinding you from enjoying life, right? So it's one of those aspects. I never went to prom. Yeah. Right? I never had like my senior prom or my junior prom or any of that stuff. And these are lifelong memories that you tell when you're like in your 60s, 70s to your kids or whatever. It's the same idea where if you look at a successful self-made entrepreneur or whoever that's made in their career, what do they do after they make the money? They most likely go into philanthropy or some aspect, or they're giving back. And that is something where for me, it's kind of like, I've never been kind of like, I would say I'm more of a business oriented individual, but it's always for me, it's like, I'm always trying to build relationships and make something happen, make a product, kind of pave my own destiny, mark my own road, but at the same time, provide some sort of utility to the public. And like, always have good intentions. I think that's like, in my opinion, that's what served me really well, is good karma. You do good and like you do the world justice, like the world will return that and back. But it was the discipline I gained at the gym in the beginning. Where when I took it so seriously, I never missed a meal, like meal prepping. I competed. I was 18. I never missed a routine. And that's what kind of gave me that like robotic mentality where it's like I need to grind. But then, like I said, there's a point where it's like not only do you get burned out, but you're not as efficient, right? Like one aspect where I say is like you can do like you got to ask yourself, like when you're working, let's say 8 hours in a day or 9 hours in a day or whatever, how many of those hours are you actually working?
It's, like the 80-20 rule.
Yeah, 80% happiness. Like you do like be on it for 80%, 20% you kind of cheat.
Well, it applies to anything, but I heard it in work in the sense that like I've heard that 80% of the work you get done in a day comes from 20% of the time. So someone sits down at their computer and they have for like an 8-hour workday, but 2 of those hours is where they get 80% of their work done. But it's interesting because the gym was a really big thing for me too. I mean, there's so many actually things to unpack here. I wanted to mention how you were talking about how like you started in video games, because I have a friend who's like Chris, very, very successful entrepreneur at a young age. And the first business he ever had was running Minecraft servers. Yeah. And he would have he would make thousands of dollars from these Minecraft servers, which I don't really understand because I didn't play Minecraft. But he told me that his friends would like come and like raid his like his server, and he would lose like thousands of dollars, but they would chalk it up to like tomfoolery. They'd be like, "Oh, I got you, bro," and he'd be like down like $5,000 because he just destroyed his like.
You don't view it as money because it's digital.
Yeah, but and it's so funny. Even me, like I feel like I know we both come from like a lonelier high school experience, and I feel like video games. I used to be obsessed with COD Zombies. Yeah, I would do every Easter egg. They probably don't know what that is, but like,
what was your highest level?
COD Zombies I did every Easter egg on every map on every game.
Dude, so for me, like, because I came from a straight PC background, so we have this like egotistical, narcissistical like, level where it's like, bro, I'm only PC, but I didn't mess with consoles too much because I started at such a young age. But I remember like, and you can resonate with this, playing zombies, you'd pause and go down, like you'd pause the maps or whatever because you're at level like 60 or 100. And because you'd be doing the whole loop around. I'm talking about like the Black Ops old
I know
OG
exactly
zombies. The music in the zombies was always cool too. But go ahead.
The interesting thing about it is that I feel that me and you relate to this too, is that it's funny because I'm the person who sits here and I tell everyone, get outside, get off your phone. Yeah. But I feel that so much of my personality came from being in a headset, being surrounded by friends for like 8 hours, because you get really good conversationally because it's like nonstop conversation.
Yeah, so the idea with that is that this is why like pen pals, people get emotional on pen pals and like, you know, Reddit forums and like all these different subreddits or forums or just in general where people can dive deep, is that you feel like you can actually be yourself. And when I was playing WoW, it was truly like I was myself, right? Yeah. It was how I want to perceive myself or how I want the public to perceive me, right? Because in those type of video games, your direct input is your direct output. And what I mean by that is essentially like if you're grinding, like grinding levels or grinding whatever, proficient or getting better at that game, you're going to see direct relative, like it's going to be directly proportional to how you're like perceived in that game, right? So people are used to you as like, oh, this guy has the sickest gear, has the best server, wherever you're from. This guy has like a 12-inch cock, right? Or some shit like that. This guy's freaking amazing, right? And then for me, it was kind of like the reason why I even got into anime was like the type of animes I got into were harems, right? Where it was like this dude that's kind of misunderstood. Yeah. And then the whole idea with that was that like, then he ended up getting some sort of power. So you're like the hero of this journey. And then like you get all these chicks or something like that, right? It was kind of this weird like insecurity that I had growing up that like video games, animes, even movies, they kind of like fulfilled that for me to an extent where I was like, I truly actually was feeling like myself. And also the friendships that I had growing up and playing WoW, I still remember it to this day, right? It's one of those aspects where like the dopest thing is I met some kids that I grew up with because it's my childhood, right? And I meet them in public or just kind of like this. It's the biggest trip of your lifetime is because you see them for what they are, but you actually know them for who they are. Yeah. It's the first time you see them for what they are, and you're just kind of like, and like the bear, like there's no like, you're just be yourself.
You're bringing up a crazy realization here. So I think to elaborate on what he's saying is that in every interaction in life, you see someone and depending on how good your ego is or how good you can see people for their soul, you're going to have some sort of like physical appearance biased. So if two girls walk up to me and one's smoking hot, like I try to be someone who gives everyone equal attention. But the truth is I'm probably going to give this girl more attention. And even with guys, we're more likely to hang out with guys who look like us, who are like, like if you run into a Persian, you're probably going to feel a little bit more comfortable.
Brotherhood mentality,
And video games are the only place where that interaction is flip-flopped. Yeah. Where I remember I used to play with this kid from Minnesota, and we'd play video games like hours for months, And he was like, I genuinely considered him one of my best friends.
Yeah.
And one time he visited San Diego, and I went to meet him in person, and it's like, you know everything about him, everything about his personality, and then you're just like, yeah, you've probably sent Snapchats or some shit by this time, but it's just like, it's so video games is kind of that only place where you meet people for their like personality first, and then their looks come later, which is just interesting.
It's where like if you're in the same mindset or same level field, you befriend them, right? Whether it's leveling up, grinding, or whatever, and then you end up being like, and you spend every single day a few hours with them. Whether it's on Ventrilo, used to be Ventrilo, Skype, and then it became Discord now. But it was a place where I think like for us, because we're like truly the generation that started with before it blowing up, and like how this was the scapegoat, like this was like an escape area where it was like, okay, this is like where we go to, and then now it's turned into something much more, which is awesome. But it's beautiful, man. In an odd way, it's truly beautiful. And like going back to that topic of just like the reality check, that was like it sucks, but that is what life is at times, right? Like it's one of those aspects, and you can actually tap into that and actually look max or whatever it is to yourself to make yourself have the best possible outcome in any interaction. But that's a whole different debate. But it's also subconscious bias, right? Like what you find attractive and you meet someone, you're going to do that subconsciously. Whether you can make yourself conscious about it, maybe over time you can turn your conscious into subconscious, but it's just a reality check.
I would say though, that the more you can see someone, girls, I would say this as far as girls and as far as friends, the more you can see someone and try to just see them for their soul, I feel like it's been my experience that the more you can see people for their souls, the better life will be. Because there's like so many people who look one way. Maybe they looked bad, or they were like a small kid, and because they were like lonely, and maybe like someone like you or me, they ended up becoming very successful and building their empire. But so many people ignore them because of their looks. And I'm coming out here and I try to give everyone the time of day. I try to, and it's again, like, I'm not denying the bias. The bias is there, and it's subconscious too. Like what you're saying, it's not like you have to actively like fight it if you want to. But I think that when you try to see people for their souls, it pays off. That's what I've.
It's the golden rule, man. It's principles, right? Treat others the way you want to be treated,
exactly.
Right? But that's interesting. Now I'm gonna reverse Uno. What was like the trigger, flip of the switch that made you think like that?
Well, part of it is religion. Like I'm a Christian, and that's kind of like, that is like the Jesus message, is that, and that is also the message as far as even just the message of the podcast, which everyone wants to achieve something, everyone wants more money, everyone wants their dream life, but like God says, don't pursue the things of this world, like love others and you'll be good. And so that, like, to me, I'm doing hyper obsessing over work and accomplishments. Like I used to dream about like the girl I liked in high school and the friends that bullied me. I used to dream about, I can't wait till they see that I have 1 million subscribers. That was my motivation. And I don't think it's
not bad,
terrible, but I know that even if I got those things, it wouldn't fill the gap, because the gap is not in them, it's in myself. I'm not enough for myself. And I think that by proving to them I'm going to become enough for myself, but it's not.
That's actually, I have so much, I resonate a ton with that actually, because it was kind of like that for myself, right? I didn't have a lot of attention in high school, let's put it that way. And then like up until recently in the past few years, as I kind of grown into myself, it's a flip of a switch, right? And then people are like, oh, like when I see them at like whether I'm outside like at a bar, they're like, Sam Nejad? They're like, dude, is that you? They're like shot. And then like for me, it's like they're like, dude, you've changed. But I'm like, bro, like in reality, I'm still the same guy. I still crack the same jokes I did in high school or middle school or elementary, which is, it can be a blessing or a curse depending on how you view it. But like it's just because of the whole idea of just kind of like what have you. Like I understand that I had a minor glow up or whatever. Right. But the same idea, it's also that ambition of me not having that attention, or that aspect or element of me not having that attention growing up, like what that would make me satisfied, was what actually fueled my ambition, right? And I think that was where I was kind of going with, was like when I was 18, 19, 20, 21, where that's where I was like, yo, Sam, you need to like take a step back and think about your own happiness right now, because you haven't lived life truly. Like I didn't live my early 20s or even my late teens, and it was up until then, like, what is this all for, right? Like when you get this aspect, because I told myself at 23 I'm going to hit a specific metric, I hit it, right? And then I told myself I'm going to do all these things, and you're kind of manifesting, and you're making your dreams turn into reality. But yeah, like it's interesting because it's a very like glass is half empty mentality, because like, oh, okay, this kid said like didn't view me as this to this standard that I view myself, so I'm going to show him wrong, right? But there's a way where you can actually view the opposite route, where it's like you're trying to just provide good and approach it with the glass half full mentality, the optimism aspect instead of the pessimistic angle. And I think that's where kind of the self-realization of self-growth is, that we can still do these same things, be ambitious, still have this work hard, play hard mentality, but it doesn't have to be a toxic thing. It's like, I'm doing this to flip off kids that just didn't treat me with respect in middle school or high school, right? But like, it's kind of funny, but like, it's
interesting though, because you know what I find interesting about it is that like nowadays, where I'm a podcaster and you're an actor, and like you're gonna, as far as girls or friends, success is attractive.
Sure.
You want to have successful friends. Everyone wants to have successful friends. And so it's funny because I might look at those kids and be like, damn, they're hella fake. They didn't want to hang out with me when I was this lonely kid in high school. But at the same time, it's like, how can I blame them? One, because they're young kids and we're all dickheads in our own way.
Sure,
young
you
kids.
can't blame them when they're 17.
And two, it's like, they just wanted to hang out with, in their terms, the form of success, which was the pretty girls, or the guys who were cool.
Kids.
And now it's like, we're doing the same thing.
So I actually have a...
But to be fair, I would argue though that we're not like we're trying not to like bully anyone or ignore anyone. So there is like a degree of leveling up, but it's still the same idea of like, you want to surround yourself.
So like there's something super interesting about this. So basically for me, my whole goal with even just starting a business in the first place was because I knew I ended up wanting to go into filmmaking in general. But I wanted to have a foundation where I didn't want to, just being real, wait tables when I'm in LA. Right? I want to actually have a financial, I want to be financially free where I can actually pursue my craft, whether it's self-producing a film, starring myself, script writing, or acting. I'm not financially like obligated or have this financial obligation where I'm like, dude, I can't pay rent. Now I can't pursue this craft or I have to move out of the city. I want to have that variable completely eliminated. Now, the interesting thing about this is now that I'm actually fully pursuing my own endeavor and saying I'm in filmmaking or as specifically an actor, people kind of like look back. They don't like really give me the respect. But once they found out what my resume is and like what I've achieved up until then, it's a light switch, right? They're like, wow, you have this many like businesses. You've done this, you've done that. So whether it's like the angle that I approach it with is very interesting, because I'm still the same guy, still the same knowledge. But when you say you're an actor, there's just this stigma associated with like an aspiring actor. Whether you're saying, you know what, I'm like a serial entrepreneur who's built 8 businesses in Northern California, or North County, San Diego, and also done, crypto protocol, all that good stuff, and also have another initiative project that's an AI, and doing all these things. They're like, wow, you did this, did that, graduate USC, CSBA, which is computer science, business administration. Like, there's a ton, and there's like this whole timeline, right? But it's crazy. It's just like the angle and how you deliver yourself. But people still have that like idea, I guess, like opinion, because I've firsthand experienced this within the last few months, right?
You can correct me if I'm wrong, but I was gonna ask you about this. I feel like you've made money. You've had 8 businesses. You could keep running your businesses and probably be fine. But
that's what I'm doing.
But you're also you're choosing to do acting because it fulfills your soul.
Yeah, so it's art, right? In the beginning, I said I'm a creator at the end of the day. Right? So for me, like, money comes and goes. When you die, and you've heard this multiple times, money ain't gonna come with you. Right? Like, this ain't the Vikings where you bury yourself with gold. Like, for Valhalla. This is something where, like, for me, it's more of like, what is my legacy? And for me as an artist, that's why I say I'm an artist. I think an artist is an entrepreneur at the end of the day, and what that, in my definition, that is someone that is kind of doing their own thing, let's put it that way, but providing some sort of utility or service to their community, right? And for me specifically, I've been absentee from my personal. As you get bigger, it's actually funnier. It's counterintuitive. As you get bigger and like more locations, you actually have to put less input, right? Because you have more staff, you have a team, and then it becomes a routine where it's like, it becomes like, then that's where you hear these people saying like, oh, I have like 60 apartment units, 600 apartment units. And you're like, how do you manage all that? But they're barely putting in that much work. But in the beginning, it was a ton of work. I remember when I was 19, 18, I was like 60 hours and what have you. But that aside, it's something where A, it's in me. Like for me, like I have gnarly ADHD, so I have to be doing something than nothing. Also my addictive personality. And then B, it's just been something as a kid and as a child, I always had a creative nature. I would say I was always more like in towards like being a creator versus anything else. And like that's what I was mentioning, whether it's product design, like that's why I really love like my specialty when it comes to like any business that's like e-commerce related is designing a product and delivering that product. I'm also a sales guy for it, but the reason I'm the sales guy is because A, I have good intentions, and also because I built the product and I understand the product and I'm delivering actual value to consumers and not taking advantage of you, right? So I truly believe that and I know that. So that's why for me, it's not even sales, right? So it's just me just explaining you what I'm like, what I'm providing to consumers. It's up to you if you want. I'm not going to force you on it. And so that's like my idea. So it was just me being a creator, but it's leading to legacy, right? As far as art is, in my opinion, is one of the most beautiful. It is really funny because it is, it's priceless, right? Like we've heard this, right? Like your opinion on this painting or this music is a lot different than my opinion, right? But there's a value for it that we set up. And I think that value is that if I die, let's say tomorrow, God forbid, if I have a piece of art out there, that art's going to live on forever and that's going to be my legacy, right?
Yeah, that's interesting. I have a question related to this, but it's how I end all my podcasts, so I don't want to ask you it. I wanted to go back to the point of ADHD and video games in the gym. And you had been talking about how like people like video games, and I think you can say the same thing for the gym, is that the work is directly correlated to the result. So for example, like if I'm playing a video game, the hours I put in will come out in my character and my skill level and my perceived notion. The hours I put in the gym will come out in my, if you do gym and food, it will come out in your body. Like you can't go to the gym and not have results. But that's an interesting thing because I could post 300 podcasts and technically could have 0 listeners. Like it's a possibility. It's not directly correlated. I don't know exactly what the question is here, but what do you think of that like concept of like, because now you're going into acting and acting is much like this podcast. Like you could go to 1,000 auditions and not go anywhere. You could go to one audition and be a star tomorrow.
I think it's more of a hobby. Like acting for me it's been a passion. It became my hobby. And I was fortunate just being from Carlsbad where I have friends that have just been directors and producers and just giving me these little bites here and there. And it was kind of then when I figured out I loved doing this. And as for yourself, I mean, we're not getting paid for doing this, but we're still doing it, right?
Exactly.
It becomes, so it's like kind of having that love that it's still fun for us. It's like, this is a fun conversation to have. For me, one aspect, when you were mentioning about video games that I want to highlight on is that everybody starts at like the home plate. Right? There's no like, you start at level 1, there's no, you can, nowadays it's kind of screwed because people can pay to win. But like I'm talking about is back then, right? Where before it was all about the money and like you're putting money in. It's about just putting the effort in. It's for me now as far as how I'm approaching, I guess, filmmaking in general is just being strategical at the end of the day. Strategy has to be a huge thing with any aspect. Like you just interviewed Jeff Finster. Humongous entrepreneur that's in that's in this town. There's a lot of leverage with just communicating and also building a relationship. And over time, I'm a huge believer in consistency. That whether or not you're providing true value, it's just going to resonate, right? Like you're providing a really good value and tool for listeners, which is to like pay attention more to your souls. And it's coming from individuals that have been on both sides of the playing field and now kind of understand like what truly makes you kind of happy waking up and like how you can continue and just not waking all grumpy and like, you know, losing hair for nothing, right? Like it's all about like living life to the fullest.
Let me explain a concept to you and you can give me your opinion.
Sure.
So there's a bunch of creators like now, I mean, YouTube's the most desired job in the world at the moment.
Of course.
Here's my issue that I see with it. This is the soul wealth perspective, is that the post button is kind of the last step. So once you hit post on your podcast or post on your video, or you even like, you could apply it to acting, like you go into your audition, that's like the post button. This is so many people don't know if they're successful when they hit post. they're waiting to find out if they're successful. So they're waiting for metrics after hitting post. So they're going, oh, once I see how much money this podcast makes me, then I'll decide if it was successful. Once I see how much views, likes, streams this podcast got, then I'll determine if it was successful. Once I see how my friends reacted to it, how my parents reacted to it, then I'll determine if I'm successful. And what I'm trying to change is that you should know by the second you hit post if you're successful. And you change those metrics to stuff that comes after to stuff that comes before. So it's like, did I enjoy the process? So right now I'm sitting here and I'm enjoying the conversation. So therefore, by the time I hit post, I'm already successful. 100%. The other thing, does it align with my values? Like, I'm really talking about what I want to put on this world, which is soul wealth. Like, it already aligns with my values before I hit post. Yeah. And it's like, and then the last one that I think is so important is like, did it make me feel a desired of emotion? Not, am I trying to make all these other people, like, I'm feeling something right here. I don't know if the audience is going to feel what I'm feeling. I mean, I think that the best indicator if they will like it is if I like it myself. Yeah. But it's like changing those metrics from all the stuff that comes after that are like, I can make the best possible podcast and I can hope that it makes me the most money and hope that it gets the most likes, views, and streams. But that is like literally for the world, the algorithm to decide if I'm successful. But I want success to be in my own hands. So I want to know, like, it's like an interesting concept.
No, 100%. No, it's just what you're discussing is subjective, right? It's your definition of success.
Yeah.
You can define success as being soul happy, or it can be via view count, via like if engagement or what have you, or via monetary values. At the end of the day, I think that the real success is that, mind you, you're 22, correct?
22, yes.
You're 22 and you're putting yourself out there.
Yeah.
Right? And in my opinion, that's respect, right? You're doing what you love, your passion, you're doing it. I waited until I was 24 and doing this. I'm 24 right now, but I waited until 24 to pursue entertainment, right? Filmmaking. And it's one of those aspects that you're doing it sooner than later. We've all heard the story where it's like, you're only young for so long, so pursue what you love to do and you'll have time, right? If your whole goal is to make money, you will make money. You can make money in literally everything, right? An example, I'll actually bring this, is that basically for me that I'm pursuing like entertainment, I'm doing everything, right? Whether it's reality, acting, via showcasing, getting a manager, and then also doing modeling, right? One thing I noticed about modeling that I didn't know about until this is just because I got in it, was like, I was like, but I also have a business perspective when I'm walking into it. So that's like a huge thing, is having this business mind perspective. And like a side tangent is that when I'm driving, right? So I started automotive stores. I have a checklist of like what I say would be a successful shop or not. I can look at a piece of real estate and be like, I can make this into a $6-figure $1 million unit just like this. I know how to do that, right? But it all became from a mindset where when I'm driving, people just mindlessly drive. Yeah. Well, for me, when I'm driving, I'm scouting at the same time, right? Where I look at a gas station, there's a gas station on Palomar Airport, the Shell, 3 bays right next to In-N-Out. Oh, it's like it blue balls me. Every time I'm looking at that, I'm like, funny. Let me have you. They're using it for storage. But dude, that is a prime example of a spot that I would make it 7 figs, easy. People don't think about that, guaranteed, because there's a bunch. It's accessible. It's off the freeway. There's houses all around. There's not to me. Carlsbad's not saturated with automotive. It's all in like the village, right? And like they're in the shit areas in the village. So you have to drive all the way down and all that stuff. So it's like there's so much area in it, like for that to actually provide utility from just those 3 bays that is just being used for storing Gatorade bottles, right? But going back, that was just a side tangent. You go ahead.
I think you brought up something interesting though, is that like, and I think it's a consistency thing, but you can give me your opinion, is like you start to create, like when you do something a lot, whether it's you building businesses, then you start to drive around, you start to think with the, I think part of it is telling yourself like, how am I going to use my time? Driving is such a good time to think or to consume podcasts or audiobooks, like, and a lot of people will just go and drive. And so it's like identifying that, but then the other thing is, how do you create a mindset like that is affirmed for a specific thing? Like even I would say, since I've been doing this podcast, I hyperanalyze conversations. Yes. It's weird. Yeah. I'll be talking to someone and I'll be like,
it's opportunity, man.
I'll literally, I used to just have conversations. Now when I have conversations, I'm like, oh, like people talk like this for this reason, or that would be a great subject on my podcast, or I wonder why their body language, why do they lean in, why do they use their hands, why, and now, but I never thought like that before I did the podcast.
You're making me insecure. No, I'm kidding. It's honestly, in my opinion, it's when it comes to it, it is it's a mindset, but it's also like the whole idea is that another man's dirt is another man's treasure.
Yeah.
Right? So people are driving by, say, oh, that's a gas station. For me, because I'm in the business of gas stations, I'm like, that's opportunity.
Yeah.
Right? It's the same idea where there's any conversation you have, because you're in the podcast business, or just talking, that's opportunity.
Yeah.
Right? Whether it's a good topic or a subject or what have you, there's gold to be found there.
Yeah.
Right? And like,
that's really interesting.
And that's one thing where it's a mindset. And then the same idea with going back to like a business mindset is that there's a business in everything, is that the discussion we're having is like, I recently just got into, like, let's say modeling, right?
Yeah.
Now there's gigs out there with modeling. I thought it was like photo shoots and you like doing runways and stuff like that, because that's how you're perceived in the public. And like, this is how you know ADHD. I'm like talking about so much quickly, but I got to slow it down. But no, there's like gigs out there for modeling that, like, if you're hosting an event, you can hire like models to be like your bussers, or like, you know, shaking hands, greeting. So it's like individuals that are good looking that are basically being like your staff, which is very interesting. And I was like, dude, there's literally a business in everything, right?
Yeah.
So there's way to make, and the whole original of this topic was that there's literally money to be made. If you want to make money, there's literally money in anything, right? You just have to look at it. The whole topic of this started with me just saying this and giving you an example that it's a mindset, right? So like, it's just opportunity, because you're so invested in podcasts that you're invested in every conversation you have, right? And that's the whole idea. Whether it's me being invested now in entertainment, I'm invested in every single field of entertainment has to offer, and I'm going to capitalize as much as possible. Now, if I'm invested in basically expanding my empire as far as my commerce business goes, my brick and mortars, I'm invested in driving around, finding the best locations possible, and providing that service to that community, right?
Dude, that's really interesting. I liked the way you put it with like, it's like another man's trash is treasure. And it's not that everyone's having a conversation thinking, oh, this conversation is trash, but it's like, they just aren't acknowledging it. It just goes by. But then I'm having a conversation, and I'm like, yo, that topic, that's gold. That's
conscious about it.
Yeah, it's conscious. Wow, that's crazy. I want to make sure I ask you about this, which is like a complete topic shift.
Sure.
But you said that plastic surgery used to be your dream profession, and you had a really good explanation.
So there's a few aspects. So when people think plastic surgeon, they just think of like the boob augmentation and all that stuff, but it wasn't.
Think of it as like a fake industry. It feels like
it's truly not. So this is actually something was true. So obviously there's a lot that stems into this, right? I was Persian, right? So for like basically parents saying that you have to be a doctor, lawyer, whatever, right? But they were always saying be a doctor. So I always had this mentality growing up, like, oh, I want to be a doctor. And I was in pre-med, all this stuff. And then I told myself too, and this is a realization, I was like, okay, this is later in life where I was like, there's a few things in life that I can do that you can pay me literally $0, and I'll show up with the same mentality, same attitude. I'll show up at 0 dark 30, leave at 0 dark 30, and give 1,000% energy, right? And one of those was basically being a plastic surgeon. But the specific type of plastic surgeon was facial reconstruction.
Yeah.
Right? And that itself, and the reason behind that was I really found a passion or fulfillment in a weird way where I'm purely, the reason I love product design is because of aesthetics. I'm super into aesthetics, right? And plastic surgery is all about symmetry, which is what aesthetics is perceived as. If you're symmetrical, you're aesthetically pleasing at times, right? Just naturally. But the reason I love burn victims so much is that it was a way, or not, facial reconstruction is so I can provide people that have been through like acid attacks or just burns in general, the ability to feel human. Yeah. That's the best way to describe it. Where I thought to myself, like, that is the most, I don't want to say godly, because that's like narcissistic, like kind of oddly narcissistic, but the most satisfactory thing that you can do to this world right now, from like what value can I provide to this individual, is I can make this person feel human again, right? So like, let's say an ex-girlfriend or ex-boyfriend or whatever, it's crazy, you got and threw like acid on your face. This stuff exists day to day. And these people went from like looking normal, like just nothing like out of the norm, to like where kids are staring at them saying like, mommy, daddy, what, like, you know, they're gonna encounter this in life. And for them, they're gonna not feel as human again. Their confidence gets shattered. So for me to provide a service to them, and I'll do completely free, right? Where it's one of those aspects where let me help you, where this would be out of my good intentions, where it's like, let me actually like make you feel human again, whatever step I can.
That's so interesting, because I feel like the instantaneous thought about plastic surgery is fake. It's like, it's Jersey Shore, big ass cheeks and boobs, and and you use plastic surgery if you don't have confidence. But I never ever thought about it from your perspective, which is that, dude, there's so many reasons you could have your face messed up. You could, I mean, I fell on a rock at the beach once and cut my face. I still have a scar in the middle of my face. People don't notice it. But I used to be super self-conscious about it growing up. And
it's giving you confidence at the end of the day.
Yeah, car crashes, burn, fire, all these reasons to mess up your face. And that act of like fixing someone's face with plastic surgery is like, it's extremely noble.
It's, well, for me, like, that's just life, right? For me, like, in general, the way I come from, I'm fortunate that I have, that I grew up with a good family with good intentions and good principles, right? Like, a lot of this, like, the greatest mentor and greatest man I know to this day is my father, right? Like, he is one of those individuals who's always jolly, like, he's the type of guy that if he has a dollar in his pocket, he's going to give you that dollar.
Yeah.
Right? Because he can make it back. So for me, it was never about, like, it wasn't about money, right? For me, sure, in the beginning, like where I started my business, I was like, oh, I want to do this, all this stuff. But once you kind of achieve it, you're like, what's going to make me wake up in the morning, right? Because another day is just a dollar. But if I can provide some sort of, if I can see you like smile, and it's a different type of smile, right? It's not just like smiling like this. It's like for the first time you're able to see, right? So I had terrible eyesight growing up. I didn't get glasses until I was in 10th grade. So, and I'm nearsighted, right? So for me, I thought that was a way to see life. The moment I got glasses, I was shocked, right? I was like, the first time I'm actually truly be able to see, like, wow, this is how like I'm able to see now. This is how everybody's able to see. I went out and stared at a leaf for like 20 minutes because the texture of a leaf, right? You see the veins, you see the sharp edges. There's sometimes droplets on the leaves. Then you see grass very shiny and edgy, right? There's a ton of aesthetics there. But it was just truly the passion for, like, I guess, helping an individual out there that that is going through so much pain and that is so confident. In my opinion, it's individuals like I see at the gym. Let's say this, people in wheelchairs or people that are like, there's a guy that's literally in like the stroller that's going to the gym. That's what motivates me, saying, you know what, because I might wake up that day, I'm like, oh, I'm too tired. There's a guy who's barely walking, he's still going to the gym. And then for me, I'm like, that's respectable. That guy has my respect, right? Like this whole idea of like, I guess going to alpha male, because I'm having this conversation with like what defines an alpha male. They were saying like what characteristics, height, all this stuff. I'm like, nah, it's a mentality plus like it's just a pure mentality and principles in my opinion. Like what respect do you have to offer? Like we talk about Mike Tyson. I think he's like what 5'10", 6 foot. Not like super tall, but when you define him as alpha, 100%. Everybody's gonna say that, and he's one of the wisest people in my opinion. Is Mike Tyson, because he's truly real. When you hear him talk, it's not about money. He treats you, when you listen to his podcast, he's real, and that's the best way to describe it. Is that his, like, you don't feel like he's trying to, like, there's not like some objective, right? Because he's done everything a man could possibly dream of, right? He's a warrior, made the money, had the fame, whatever it is, and now he's kicking it, right? Like there's videos of him that his most proudest moments are when he's watching his child play an instrument, right? And it was really actually tear-dropping to me, like where I teared up because it's like truly beautiful in a weird way. It's like what I define as like true beauty, right? Like there's beauty in the beast, right? Like whether it's like fixing it like a disformity or whatever, and then giving them the confidence. But seeing someone like Mike Tyson look down where he was getting interviewed and his daughter was playing the piano. And for him, the interview, the whole surroundings just shut off, and he was purely invested in his daughter. And you see just a happy dad looking at his daughter playing the instrument, because that's not something he did when he was growing up, right? And that was super captivating. Like some small, and that's why I love film, is because there's small moments like that where those are moments that you can, where everybody in the audience can resonate with, and that's what provides goosebumps, and that's why I love film.
Every time you talk, you say so many things that it like sparks like 5 different questions.
No, I know.
And I have to decide
which one to pick.
Which one to respond. But I think I'm gonna start with I had very good parents too, and I think it comes from being Christians, is that they care so much about how they treat people. But like growing up, we live like an hour away from the border to Mexico, and my parents would make me go to orphanages in Mexico and build houses and give them stuff.
That's beautiful.
But when I was a kid, I hated it. Like it was orphan day, and I was like, dude, I hate orphan, because I didn't understand it. I was a little kid growing up, and I was like,
go play with your friends.
Yeah, and it's hot. It's hot as heck down there, and I would be working, and I wouldn't get anything great, and my parents would do it, and I would be like, oh, not another day going to Mexico. But now looking back on it, I'm like, dude, thank God my parents raised me that way, because like the little things that, like those little ways, and I do have a question to go with this, but those little ways your parents do things to you, a lot of time you hate them in the moment, but you grow up to appreciate them, and you're like, I understand. And now I'm so focused on helping others, and I really think it's because my parents raised me. And I want to go to a point you said where one time in your life, I want to talk about how adults affect kids. And one time in your life, you said a teacher kind of like outed you in front of your whole class, and it was something that stuck with you and like completely changed you.
So I'm not gonna go. I don't want to name the teacher and all that stuff.
No, don't name it.
But yeah, like basically, it was one of my teachers in high school, and I was a jokester in class here and there.
Yeah.
But towards my senior year, I was losing motivation, right?
Yeah.
And this is where a good moment is where if your enemy, I don't want to say the teacher thought it was his enemy, but like an enemy where if your enemy's on the floor, do you stomp him or do you help him up, right?
Yeah.
And this is moments where like you're talking to like a 16-year-old, 17-year-old child at this moment.
Like developing.
Yeah, you're still developing, and you can obviously tell that the kid is not, 100% invested in education. There's something wrong with that. It's your duty as a teacher or guidance to guide that kid towards the right path, right? Instead, this individual showcased essentially how many days I was absent in front of the whole class and basically saying that your parents must be proud, right? And this is before like my whole day. It was my first class, my first period. I know it wasn't much to him, right? It was one of those things I just kind of like was here and there, and he probably thought nothing of it. But to me, it was very embarrassing. It was it brought up a lot of truth to it, like a reality check for me. Like that's how he views me, right?
Wait, I want to clarify this because I'm not sure if it made sense, but his teacher pulled up all his absences and all his failures in front of all your classmates, correctly?
Yeah, before class even started. So it was like when kids are going in. He didn't do it like during the class session, right? Like that would be weird, but it was literally like when teachers, when you're rolling in, there's like, it was like 5:20, like 2 minutes before class started.
He did it on purpose. Like he was aware that other kids were going to see it.
It was in front of the entire class.
Yeah.
Right. And the thing is that like, for me, it was like, how do you respond to that? I was like debating on just like saying F you and walking out of that class. To this day, if you did it today, yes, I would 100%. Because I have more respect and more, like, I'm more confident with myself. Yeah. But it's a moment where I wasn't really confident with what I want to do in life. And that just fueled my ambition, right? And for the longest time, I was like, it was the same idea where you saying a million subs. I was like, I'm going to beat you in this X amount of years and I'm going to say F you. But have I thought about him? No, not at all. But there's here and there at times where it comes. But it was a moment where like I think school is a very interesting subject because it's I do still believe in education a ton.
Yeah.
The thing about school though, and this is where I knew this, I was never a bad student. I just never played school. It was up until college where I played school and I was a 4.0 student, was essentially prodigy. Like it was one of those aspects where it wasn't like necessarily how like what was being perceived. It was how I was approaching education in the beginning. And for me, it was more treated as a chore. And then when I realized that, if I want to make something, become something, realize that these skills and like what school teaches you can be an additional tool in your toolbox, that this can eventually lead to your success. I realized that from that mindset. And then I started listening to podcasts at a young age. And then I stopped for a sec because I was listening to it while driving. Then I realized that like it was me basically just doing too much, too much like digesting. Yeah. But yeah, man, it wasn't cool though.
I just thought, I mean, the point I wanted to touch on is that like we went from like how like our parents like they both raised us in a way where they treated other people with respect, and now it's like such a core value in our lives now. Sure. And that teachers may do something like that, and it means nothing to him. He probably forgot about you, went on the next year. Yeah, but it's like that is a growing child, and like it's almost you have like a duty, especially when talking to like young kids. Like you can't just. And again, I don't even know that I went to the same high school as him. I don't know the teacher you're talking about, nor do I care to know. I don't want to think of him negatively.
I'll tell you this.
But the point is, when you speak to kids or you speak to young people, like know that what you say affects them.
Yeah. It's because you're very impressionable at that age.
Yeah.
That's why like you see 16-year-olds. That's why the whole like Andrew Tate era, like all this stuff, people are like scared of him is because his demographic is like the youth, right?
Yeah.
But I think he has some good values in it itself. But besides that, we've all heard the story. All it takes is one good teacher to change your life around. And there's one good teacher that we've all had that truly made you approach life differently. You actually made you enjoy going to class because you actually started learning. Because everybody likes to learn, right? There's no reason why you wouldn't like to actually like take a step back and be like, wow, that made you think, right? Yeah. Instead of being like a chore, it turns into something like a hobby or passion where you're like, you know what, I'm listening to wisdom, right? And I think that's the biggest way. Like and I think a lot of this also has to do with how teachers are approaching their school at times. Like you always, how many times have you heard like a teacher say, I don't get paid enough for this?
Yeah.
We've all heard that once or time. First off, you chose to be a teacher. And B, that mentality itself is so poor in my opinion, literally and figuratively, that it's like, A, you should never be telling that to your student, because A, that should be private, but B, that should not, just because how much you get paid should not change how you deliver material to your students. If someone's like, yo, I'm gonna pay you X amount of figures, or reverse, I'm gonna pay you 30, 40, whatever, I don't know what the average wages for the teachers, but like, that should not dictate how you deliver education at the end of the day. But yeah, like it's hugely important having core values, and a prime example of that is that as I got older, I became more cultured. Yeah. Like with my root, like my real name is Salman. It's not even Sam. Yeah. But essentially, growing up, I remember there was Persian school, and that was on Sundays. But I would be basically going to school Monday through Friday, and then I was also in football practice. Yeah. Then Saturday was football games for Pop Warner. My parents didn't really send me to Persian school, but they sent my older brother and my little sister to Persian school. So they know how to read and write. I know how to speak Farsi. Yeah. Can't read or write. But if, I wish back then they kind of forced me, but they understood. Like when I was like, Dad, Mama, and Boba, like I don't want to go to another school on Sunday. Yeah. I was like 10 years old, right? Yeah, exactly. But like there's times where you're like, damn, I wish I kind of because it was interesting because you there's a community there, so you have a friendship. So I have like friends that went to that school, and they're hugely involved in the Persian community. I'm not super involved, but I'm always open to being like open arms. Yeah. For me, like that's something where even with traveling, you start noticing like there's a lot more wisdom. And I think honestly, wisdom is being able to understand different perspectives. Yeah. Again, like you use the Persian school as an example. I remember my dad made me get braces, and it was like the worst day of my life. I was like, dude, I don't care if my teeth are crooked. Like I do not want braces. But now, like, I'm really happy he made me get braces. He always says that to me. He's like, your dad, he brings that up as an example. But, it is true. I'm going to ask you a question, then I'm going to check the camera while you're answering just to see where we're at. But we were talking about this earlier is I feel like everyone's kind of end goal, whether they think of it or not, is like they want a partner. They want someone to spend life with. They want a lot of people, they want a family, they want kids, they want to recreate the model that was set for them. What role do you think girls, or even for girls, what role do you think like a significant other plays in achieving success? I think it's huge, right? Everybody wants their like Bonnie and Clyde, the Romeo Juliet, right? Like it's having a good partner, an emotional partner, because that's what a significant other is typically, is your emotional partner. Yeah. Is very, very huge. I think it builds your foundation as far as what your values come into, like how you perceive life. I think it's a backbone at times, but at the same moment that it turns into an object. Like, yo, I want this type of woman or this type of guy or whatever, this type of individual, where you're kind of like, that's like your target, right? Yeah. You're like, that's where this ambition sometimes comes from. But I think it's pivotal. Have I found one for myself yet? No, I haven't, truly, just being honest. But was it a motivating factor in the beginning for whether it was going to the gym or business? Of course, right? I'm not going to lie to you guys and say like, no, chicks are not motivating me. The whole idea where I was watching these shows, playing these video characters, is because they're viewed as a hero, right? Yeah. What does a hero always want? He wants the princess, right? Yeah, yeah. Like, it's just kind of ingrained with us, even through movies. It's interesting because I remember in high school being like a lonelier kid. I kind of, like you said, you didn't go to prom. I did go to prom, but I never went to a school dance with a date because I didn't have the riz. I wasn't. I literally just was not good at talking to girls, and I remember it was something that really, really bothered me. And even now, I think that I have the confidence, I have the skills. I mean, I've had a girlfriend, but it's still kind of like girls were a motivation. I mean, there's like a period of your life when you're a kid and you never think about girls because, I don't know, maybe you haven't hit puberty or whatever. Yeah. But then once girls enter your life, I feel like, and this goes for significant others for girls as well, it's not just guys, but I feel like it's always plays a role of motivation. And maybe I feel like in high school it plays a bigger role because you don't have to balance your career. You're not worrying about acting or podcasting. So in high school, you're like, oh, like girls, like top priority, or friends are top priority. And then maybe you hit this level and you're like, well, I got to make money. I got to pay my bills. I got to act. I got to do this. But you're still like subconsciously, like that's what you want. Like a lot of people are waiting for their date on Friday, or they're like waiting. It's like, again, like I don't drink. I don't like clubs or bars and stuff. But it's like, why do people go to clubs and bars?
it's like, I feel like what they want is to find love. Like it's like,
and you're speaking to a complete degenerate. For me, it's more of like, and this is like purely like just being just completely transparent. I like going to bars or clubs with a few of my individual friends that I have, like my personal group, and the reason for that is that we're like, you get validation.
Yeah.
Right? As a guy, like if you're truly focused, like what I basically worked on for the past few years is to lead up to some moments like what it is, right?
Yeah.
But it becomes meaningless after a moment where you're like, dude, this is like same thing every time. Like I'd rather be doing something cool, like hiking or any of this stuff. Also, you don't want to be branded as like dudes like just go clubbing and vibing, right? So it's interesting, man, because like it's for me, like personally going back to it, I wrote in my like notes on my phone like, hey Sam, like, and this shows you how the toxicity mindset was like, don't focus on like these 5s or 6s, right?
Yeah.
Like I wrote this on my iPhone, right? Like focus on your business, focus on yourself. And then in a few years, you'll have that 9 or 10 that you're looking for, right? Yeah. So I did that before, and then now that I've achieved what I've essentially achieved and having these different types of girls, I'm still incomplete when it comes to that. Where for me, it's like these girls are considerably attractive, and for me, it's still the same mindset where it's like now you're like, is this the right quality, right? Yeah. What quality? Like for me now, when I look at a partner, I think hugely of principles and like what their values are. And I've said this before, like, I've been very picky with who I choose as significant other, which is why I haven't had one. But it's a girl that I make my girlfriend is a girl I end up making my wife, right? So like, it's one of those aspects for me. I think it's huge. I think it's a foundation to a man's success or a woman's success is having a strong partner. And it's basically because at the end of the day, man, like I have like one of my best friends, Jack. We have a lot of brilliant moments where we get emotional. But there's something about like having an emotional conversation with a girl that you just can't have with a bro at the end of the day.
Oh, that's
it's just kind of, or like with your significant other, that you can just go deeper on a deeper level where any bullshit aside, where you're on like right now, where you can have a conversation with them on the phone, and you're like not even saying a word to them, but you don't have to have the effort where it's, I don't want to say effort, but like you don't, like you can just have her, you're just the presence of them, whether it's being mobile or just being around them. Where like that present kind of is like a completion in your it fills like a gap in there. Put it that way.
You brought an interesting thing too, and I think a lot of guys go through this journey. And again, this goes back to what I said is the faster you can see someone for the soul, the better your life will be. And but I think that there's kind of this elevation where like as a guy you're like, oh, I just want any girl. And then you start to become confident, you start to build, and maybe people who are like the high school football quarterback in the pub, maybe they don't go through this elevation, but I feel like a lot of guys go through this elevation where it's like, I just want attention from any girl, and then it goes,
that's what you're saying.
And then it goes to I want attention from the hottest girl, and then it goes to you respect yourself so much that you want all around. That's what you want, and I feel like, but this is an issue too, as I feel like people go out looking for that partner. They go out looking for the most attractive girl with the best traits and blah blah blah, and they think that's how they find them. And I say this about friends and about girls too, is it's not about looking, it's about becoming. When you become that type of person, you take on those traits that you'd want in a partner, it will like come to you. That's kind of how I feel. And I guess I'm speaking from a place of just breaking up with my girlfriend and not having it.
Way better right now. No.
What are your thoughts on attracting versus looking?
I think it's you said it on the nose, right? You took the words out of my mouth. To the point, what I mean by that is that like, if you're looking for something, you're gonna find someone that's looking for something as well, and that's desperacy, like being kind of I don't want to say desperate, but a better word. Where like you're gonna find, and it's not gonna pan out the way it is. Matthew McConaughey actually said this best, where he's like, he found his true love by not searching for it, right? Yeah. So for me, even though like I haven't had a girlfriend or any of this stuff, and I'm saying I'm not gonna have a girlfriend, but when I'm going out, I'm not searching to find like my one true love, right? Even though subconsciously every individual to an extent wants that, it's not something that I'm making myself like, oh, tonight's gonna be the night where this girl I talk to, I buy her a drink, she's gonna be my girlfriend. And slow down, pal boy. Like it's one of those things where it's like, enjoy life. And one aspect too, with like my little sister, she's 20, right? And I tell her like when she's going through, she recently just got in a relationship, great guy by the way. But like she recently just got in a relationship, but before relationship with her and also her friends, they're always like complaining about these dudes, and then vice versa, dudes at her age are complaining about getting a chick. I always hit the reverse Uno. I'm like, dude, how old were you 5 years ago?
Yeah.
You were 17, she was 15.
Yeah.
Right? How old were you 10 years ago? She was 10, you were 12.
Yeah.
Right? You should be focusing entirely on finding your own you're on your personal quest right now, your personal journey of basically your personal enlightenment, where you're trying to be the best version of yourself. The person, your partner, is going to, I believe hugely in destiny, and I believe that it's I don't want to say predetermined, I'm not like a Calvinist, but like, I believe that like something is going to come towards you in the future, but if you're actively searching for it, it might not certainly be what you're looking for. So that's,
I think you brought a good point up, though, is that, and it's funny, I interviewed like an 80-year-old guy. I knocked on his door. I used to do door-to-door podcasts.
That's dope.
He told me, he said, like, do you know yourself? And I'm like a confident dude. Like, I can talk to strangers. I'm confident in who I am. And I told him, like, well, I'm 22, so probably not. I probably have a lot of room to grow and improve and be. I bet in 5 years I'm going to look and cringe at this version of myself. And he said,
same here.
He said, well, if you don't know yourself, then how can you pick your partner for the rest of life? And that's not to say you can't grow with your partner. I'm sure you can, but it's true in the sense where I'm like, yeah, why would I even look for her now? Because like I'm going to change. I'd rather find her when I'm more of the person that I'd be. And again, it's not to say that you can't grow with a partner, that you can't find them at this age, but I think it's like so many people at this age, that's their main concern. It's like, your concern should be yourself and becoming the person you want to be, and then you'll be a reflection. That person will reflect you.
100%. There's something beautiful about growing with an individual that I think I've experienced this with, not with like an emotional partner, but with like business partners, right?
Yeah.
We're growing a business. There's like a bond there, right? That is, you start from scratch. We all see the stereotypical like entrepreneur story, like where there's like a snippet of a picture, they're all crammed in one room, and then it turns into something much more. And I think there's something beautiful and brilliant in that. But what's the point of living life if you already know who you are? Yeah. Right? And I think that's the beauty of it. And not to put Matthew McConaughey on, but he gave a great Oscar-winning speech where he was like, he won when he won an Oscar, right?
Something to chase?
Yeah, exactly. The hero's journey, right? Where he's like, the guy asked him for his hero. He's like, the hero's 5 years from now, right? And they came back or whatever. It's that constant like enlightenment journey, in my opinion, where you're seeking a better version of yourself.
Wait, hold on. We should say that very clearly so they can get it. Is Matthew McConaughey, he was accepting his Oscar or whatever, and he said like, they said, who's your hero? And he said, my hero is me in 10 years. And it's like the idea that you're always trying to improve, always trying to be better.
Yeah.
Since I think my battery, I know when my camera is about to die and stuff, so I'm going to go into the outro question, which is, and it's all about soul wealth, this whole podcast. I like to reverse engineer life. Is a lot of people think they want achievements, they want their dream life, dream car, they want their, and we've dove into all these concepts, but I always ask people at the last question of the day, what do you want people to say about you when you die? Because it changes that perspective. No one's going to say, Sam Nejad had the nicest car, or had the best automobile business, and maybe you want them to say something about your acting skills, but a lot of times it's about like how you treated people or whatever. So you had an interesting thing about legacy. What do you want people to say about you when you die?
It's so easy. It's hard. A good man, right? Like I think like as simple as short as that, the visionary, creator, right? Like something where, just a man of honor and respect, right? I'm hugely with principles. And for me, like that would be where if someone like, I don't want any ill or malicious, like I try to be as benevolent as possible and keep life better. And an interesting like ending for this is I spoke to an individual about this, and there's something so beautiful about it, was that when you look at a tombstone or a gravestone, what's like the first thing that comes to your mind?
To me, it's always how they treated their family, or like, it's usually like remembered for.
Well, no, like when you're looking, like physically looking, right?
What's the first thing that comes to mind when I look at a tombstone? Dude, I don't know. I would say that like qualities.
So or like, that's interesting. That's a cool viewpoint.
Yeah.
Like typically it's gonna be whether it's a name and the day of your birth and the day of your death.
Yeah.
Right. Like that's what people kind of focus on.
Yeah.
But the most important factor when you actually look at that is a dash in between, because that represents your life.
Yeah.
Right. And I thought that was beautiful. Was like what that dash in between represents who you are as an individual, what you've done, your accomplishments, and how you treat others and the relationships you build. Your entire journey was that dash, right? And So I thought that was kind of a cool, like, go ahead.
I was answering it from, it's actually funny. I took Matthew McConaughey's course on life. I paid like $400, but
He has a course on life?
It's based on, it's based on green lights. He just came out with it, and I paid for it. Really, it's why I started this podcast, actually. But one of the things, there's a whole chapter dedicated to your eulogy, which is literally what like they write with your funeral. And it's funny because like he was making the point that on people's eulogies, like 90% of the time, it's never what they accomplish. It's not like Matthew McConaughey, Golden Globe winner. It's almost always how they treated the people around them. It was like, he was a good father. He did. He loved his wife. He did this, which is interesting because partially, it's like very generic. It's like everyone kind of wants the same thing, but it's also beautiful because it's like when you die, all those kind of wealth metrics of money, success, achievements, kind of like they're not that important. But you brought up an interesting thing where it's like, and I think that a lot of artists build from this perspective is that like your art will be your legacy. It's like
it's how you achieve immortality.
Yeah.
In my opinion is that like we still talk about Shakespeare.
Yeah.
Like a few hundred years later, we still talk about all these different artists, right? Scientists back in the scientific revolution. It's because of what they're what utility provide, like what instrument they provided to the community that actually revolutionized, progressed humanity. So, right?
Kanye, sorry to cut you off. Yeah. Kanye had a really interesting quote where they asked someone asked him on a podcast, Lex Friedman, said, "How do you want to be remembered?" And he said, "I want to be forgotten." And then Lex was pushing him on why he said that. And he said, the greatest inventors are forgotten. And he gave an example. He said, the stoplight. Every single person encounters a stoplight every day in their life. Who invented it? You couldn't say. It's so great that it lives beyond the creator, which I thought was a very interesting answer.
He's one of the individuals, in my opinion, that's just misunderstood.
Yeah,
and like,
I completely agree. I'm a big fan.
Yeah, I think he is. I think it's a lot of individuals that are misunderstood because at the end of the day, we resonate with them the most, right?
Yeah.
We felt like they feel kind of like they're outcasts in their type of industry, which is entertainment, whatever. Whether us growing up, we kind of felt like outcasts, so we pursue like some entrepreneurial goal. But I think he's actually completely misunderstood, and just one of those aspects where people, just because of how much he is, exploit, what have you. But besides the point, that's actually, it's like, it's beautiful, man. Like, as far as, how would you like to be remembered as when you die?
The sentence I always go back to is, I want to be remembered as someone who made other people feel important.
I love that.
And that goes, I know one day I will interview Matthew McConaughey, and I want to make him feel important, and I want to sit here and make you feel important. And maybe someday I'm going to interview a homeless dude, and I want to sit here and make him feel important. I want to be remembered as someone who made other people feel important. So
we can end it off this. This is where my 17-year-old self will come out. Veni, Vidi, Vici.
Veni, Vidi, Vici.
It's Latin for I came, I saw, I conquered, right? So
let's go.
Let's make it happen.
All right. Great.
Thank you, brother.
Awkward hug. You're so much taller than me. Dude, that was great.